Okay, so we're gonna go over side control and some of the sub positions of side control. Okay, I know side control is just kind of like a general umbrella term, but there's a lot going on depending on how your opponent is moving, and also how big or how small your opponent is moving underneath you. Okay, it's not just about you just being laying on top of somebody. There's a lot of specific hip movements, a lot of arm controls. So before we get started into that, just a little bit more side control. You may also hear it as 100 kilos. In Portuguese, sometimes they refer to that as 100 kilos, where that means 100 kilos. And that's because it is extremely heavy position. Okay. In the United States or other English-speaking parts of the world, you may also hear it being referred as lateral position. Okay, so just kind of FYI. Sometimes you may go to a tournament or a different gym, and they may refer to side control as a cross body, a lateral position, cross lateral position, or 100 kilos. Okay. All right, so
Okay.
head that way. So we know that as soon as we pass the guard, it's gonna have to be, hip on hip, ideally, right? Once we get to side control, right there. Okay, we're in the side control position. So my goal right now is to be able to turn my hip in, just like this. Okay. And I want to have my body at an angle. I want to be controlling the hip and driving my pressure inward into the body to the opposite shoulder through the person's body. Okay? So a lot of times we'll be here like this. This is one position. Okay? This is really good, very stable. If you really want to control a bigger person or someone close to you, close to your size. However, if the person is smaller or they have good hip movement, this position tends to be a little bit of a nuisance because they can easily drop their knee and hip out and get their knee back inside in these positions here. Okay? You will usually end up like in a half guard or a butterfly position of sorts. Okay? But you use that position, like I said before, against somebody that's about your same size or someone a little bit bigger than you. Okay? You have the option of going live toes and dead toes, meaning that your toes are going to be posted or you're going to go dead toes. Okay? Live toes, dead toes. There's two different school of thoughts in that, and when it comes to posting your toes or not posting on your toes. Sometimes you're going to be one foot is going to be posted on the toes and the other one is not. It just kind of depends on the situation and the body that you're going against. All right. So right here, she's smaller than I am. I'm going to be on live toes. I feel a little bit more engulfing when I do that. If I do dead toes, you can see a lot of the times my weight will shift towards my knees, thus giving her a more opportunity to hip escape and bring that knee through. So this is what it looks like. So I've got live toes, and if I go dead toes, you see how my body shifts?
Yes.
Okay. Even if I have live toes with my left leg here, like this, and I go dead toes with my right, you see how my body shifts?
Yes.
Okay. I want to be aware of that. I don't want to just go here like this and then try to use my arms to hug her. And if I try to use my arms just to hug her, she's going to just turn her hip and bring that knee through. And it's going to be a bad position for me already. And that's very common, especially in the beginning stages when you don't have that live toes, dead toes concept just yet. Okay? So we're going to move on to the next side control position. okay? The next side control position is you're gonna bring one knee to the hip and the other knee is gonna go underneath the armpit. So you're gonna look like a frog. So you go from here, you go one knee to the hip, other knee, it kind of comes up to your first knee and slide all the way up across the body underneath the armpit, just like so. And you can be dead toes on this position because you are literally over the person. However, if the person's a little bit smaller or even a little bit bigger, you can go live toes. But it's just kind of like a personal preference at this point. Okay? Actually, let me rephrase that. If the person's smaller than you, you can go dead toes and you can really engulf them. If the person's bigger than you, a lot of times live toes will work just fine. Okay? So that's just that position there. So hip on hip, you're squared here, and then we're gonna switch to the other hip. Okay? And then we're gonna explain more in detail. So you're here like this, like a frog. You're going to swim your arm and check right here. This arm is going to take the place of your knee. Other arm is going to swim over the shoulder, and then you're going to rotate your hip downward. Okay? So now, if you feel like the elbow is in the way, well, then you just posture back up, tripod up, and you rotate your hip downward like this. In this position, you have to be live toes. Otherwise, you will completely mess up the position. Okay? So when you rotate, you see how my leg is?
Yes.
And I have to be live toes. And I cannot be over to the other side of the person. I have to be sternum to sternum. Here. Just like this. If I go dead toes, see how my weight falls back?
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's bad for me because she can like push me over her head when I fall back like this and just spin in front to recapture some sort of guard or just get back into a neutral position. Okay? So be aware of that. So it's here. Okay? The fourth side control sub position is going to be almost the same. It's going to be knee on the armpit and the other knee on top of the shoulder. Okay, so it's like you're moving around and you're going to have to get real close over here. Maybe you can still catch the elbow, knee on the armpit and knee on the head. Okay, so now you're just mothering them way up here on the shoulders. Okay. And you can see, I'll go back in the position, you can see just how much space we have between the hips. Okay, you see that?
Yes.
How much space? So my knee's like literally over here. Okay? That's a really good spot for a smaller person to attack a bigger person. Okay, because you're using all of your body in attack up here, and it makes it very hard for them to move around. Granted, they can still try to push you away, but you know, if you have a good job, if you have to do a good job of putting your weight down on them, it's almost impossible for them to completely get rid of you. Okay.
Okay.
So it's like as you progress, you know, as you're starting to grapple, live grappling in the rolling session, you're going to go through a lot of those variations. You're going to go back and forth through all those 4 different variations so that you can control the person on the ground. One of the biggest mistakes that you will see is that one person will get to one of those sub positions and just hold it for dear life. It will just hold and hold and hold, and they will never readjust to the person moving underneath them. Okay, that usually happens because the person on top, they're using their arms to squeeze as hard as they can, thinking that that's going to stop the person from moving. Okay, they are right when they do that, kind of half right. They will stop their upper body really from moving, but they're not going to stop their lower body from moving. which is the most crucial part, right? You have to stop the person's lower body, their hips, from actually moving too much, or else they're going to regain some sort of control on you. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to switch positions now, all right? Because I'm not going to put all my weight on her and you know, break a rib or something. Okay, so, yeah. She's going to start with our first position. And that is where the hip, there you go. The hip gets turned down, okay? Now, let's sprawl. Okay? There's two variations to this also. You have the leg that's straight, and then there's the one where you turn your knee in. Okay? Now, when you turn your knee in, you always stay on the hip. You don't fall back down, right? The whole object is to control the hip with your hip, okay? So the first one is like a sprawl. This one down. Like a sprawl here, and this is very good when you're controlling someone that's bigger, okay? You know, you got live toes, maybe bigger, and they're trying to turn into you. If they turn into you, you push into them with your body. So sometimes you just kind of lean forward. If you have live toes, you can use your toes to push your hip into them. Okay? If they try to roll you, then you're going to use your arms to pull them down. Okay? And you're going to drop your hip down. Okay? If you make the mistake of lifting your hip up while you pull with your arms, you're only going to get rolled over by a much stronger person. So you have to counterweight the movement. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Can you see all this?
Yes.
Okay. So that's something that you have to be very aware of. All right. So now, if the person starts to get a little bit, fancy with their hips and their knees, then you can go, further the knee in to stop that. And it's going to have to cause them to try to hip escape out more. And that's going to give you the opening for you to go one knee on the hip, one knee on the armpit. Okay? So let's go back. Okay. All right. Can you see that?
Yes.
See how her body now is, okay? Same thing with this. This is really good when you're smaller, trying to hold someone bigger. If they start to push into you, you can kind of push into them. If they start to try to turn away from you, you pull them. Okay? And the plus side is that this position here already allows you to start to attack, either arm. More commonly, it's going to be the arm that's in front of you, such as like an Americana, right? Okay? So let's turn.
Okay.
And this is the reason here why. Because again, you've got the knee on the hip, knee on the armpit. So now the arms, the person's going to probably try to get their hand in front of you some way, somehow, right? To try to push you away, try to create a frame. Well, that opens them up because as soon as the arm comes in front, they can start setting that up to be able to capture it and get you into that Americana. Okay? Some people also from here are going to use their shoulder to turn your chin away from them. So they're going to drive their shoulder into you, and that makes it very uncomfortable and sometimes painful depending on how aggressive and how much weight this person has on their shoulder. Okay? So go ahead. And if that happens, usually the person's going to take this hand and they're going to try to create space by trying to push you away, and that's the opening for the Americana. Okay, right there. Okay, that's very common, right? So now, as you go through all these, here's something that you're gonna have to understand. You don't always have to hold on to your hands. Okay, you don't always have to have your hands overlapping to have very good control over the person. Okay, many times having your hands overlapping, it can be detrimental to you. Okay, especially when you're starting to punch or being active with the submissions. If your hands are overlapping, that means that you're holding. Okay, and when you're holding, you can't use your hands to attack. And a lot of people will take that opportunity to stall you. And when you start to attack the hands, because you release them, and I can feel her release her hands, right? Mm-hmm. They start to create all those spaces to be able to escape. Okay, so you have to be conscious of that. All right, it's okay for you to overlap your hands and get a good grip every once in a while, but don't do that every single time, every single second. Okay, so here are some good controls. Okay, the arm behind the head, you want to extend it a little bit further. See how that turns my head?
Yes.
You see that? So if she kind of, she can use her fingers to walk, or she can just slide her palm and then raise her elbow just a little bit, depending on how much space there is. Now my head is turned, okay? You do have to be careful though. You don't want to extend it. Okay? You don't want to extend the arm up like this, because then my head gets out of the way and it's like you lose control. It's no big deal. And when that arm is not there, I can start bringing my positions back into play. So you want to still have the back of the neck cupped, but you want to go to the other side of the ear. Okay? Just like so. And just a little bit. And you just kind of raise your elbow in. And if you feel like the person's going to try to like move their head back underneath, well, just slide it further to the base of the neck. Right? They're trying to get underneath. Slide to the further base of the neck and then raise your elbow again. But just kind of extend your arm a little bit more. It's just always readjusting. See how my head is already turned?
Yes.
Okay? That is crucial. That prevents a lot of the hip escapes. Okay? It prevents, okay? Right here, it prevents me from turning into her properly, having good control. Okay? Because the head will, the body will follow wherever the head leads, right? So most of the time, people are going to start to turn away from you. And that's good. That's what you want. You can take that back then. Okay? Now the other arm. Okay? Now the other arm. You want to also have the arm, your elbow, close to the person's body. Okay? You don't want much space between your elbow and their body, or your forearm and their body, because the person can always, try to pummel back inside. And that's not good, because if they pummel back inside, that means they can start to turn into you, or they can start to create a wedge with their head. Okay? So you want to do the same thing, as you want to get your elbow kind of a little bit into the armpit, and then palm down, and then raise your own elbow. Okay? Just a little bit further in, and you can already raise the elbow, and it makes it very awkward for me to do a pummeling position. Okay? If I try to pummel in, my elbow so flare out that is just so obvious. And if I try to get in, all she has to do is just collapse her elbow to my body, and my arm is not going through. Okay? So there's going to have to be that play with her own elbow. And again, you don't have to overlap your hands. Okay, to do so. You don't have to be like holding onto your hands very tight. You can overlap them and just kind of rest on them. That's fine. But you can be open. Okay? You're live with your hands. So go ahead. Just kind of like so. Do a little bit of both. And man, that is like so much control on them. Like, it's very hard for me to try to escape here. Because my head is kind of turned the wrong way. I have to move my hips. Hold on. I have to move my hips to re-straighten my spine so that I am able, hold on, so that I am able to readjust my frames and be able to turn into her and hip into her properly. Okay? But by her doing that control, and if I readjust and she's readjusting, it makes it very awkward, and people start to panic and see, like, my hand starts to push on top of her head. Well, it's already exposed, and she can use that to immediately start going for the like Americana. Okay. Is that making sense there, Phil?
It does.
Okay. So even from the first position, let's go back to the first position. Okay, even from the first position in here. Okay. Actually, let me turn it this way. Right there. Should be fine. Okay. From this first position here, live toes, okay, would be ideal because she's smaller than I am, so she needs to have live toes. Okay. She needs to have double underhooks. That's what needs to happen in this position, okay? Equal amount of control on the elbows. You see how my elbows and my arms are?
Yes.
Very awkward, okay? It's very awkward. And she can just like raise her elbows off the ground by straightening her arm, and that makes my arm suspended. And it's like, and it makes it very hard for me to try to re-pummel back inside. Okay? Because if she doesn't do this, if she doesn't raise her arms, her elbows, I can start to force those underhooks back in if I need to like roll her over to the other side or push into her and hip escape to create a wedge. Okay? A lot of the mistakes that we see from this position is people will hold on to the arm. You know, they're pulling on it. That's perfectly fine, but they're so busy pulling on it that a lot of the times their weight gets shifted back down to their toes. It's not on the opponent. Go ahead. That's why they're pulling on it, and then that creates a lot of space here for the person to start to frame against them, and they start to turn and wedge into them, creating the opportunity to go to some sort of guard. Okay? Or you have people that will be holding onto the sleeve and pulling, you know, here. Even though they're trying to fight this, it's like, it's nothing. I'm already framing. There's so much space in here already, okay? So it's just easier for you to get double underhook, good live toes, and that creates such a weird control on the person on the bottom. I can still escape, don't get me wrong, but it's gonna take like 20 times more effort on my end, and sometimes it's not even worth it, okay? Because you can frustrate the person, and again, it's like, oh, they start to push, and they rely too much on the push, and you can set up the push for, again, the Americana, right? You just, like, she would have to pummel this back inside to attack the arm, right in those positions, and as she does that, she would just have to readjust her body over, and it would be it. It would be set. Okay.
Okay.
And again, that's just the Americana. That's just what we're working with right now. Doesn't include the arm bars or the chokes. That's just the Americana from there, so that you can see like how much readjustment she has to do in order to keep that like wet blanket effect on top of me the whole time. Okay. And even from her point of view, it's such a big difference. It's a whole different control than it would be just normal. What do you say? Mm-hmm. A lot of the time, underhooks. Yeah, underhooks. Okay, like from the first position, that both underhooks, that's such a big control. Even from the second position where she's got knee on the hip, knee on the armpit. Same thing with the control of the head. That's just so much more control on her part, and she can feel just how much more power she has over my body. It's unreal.
a lot of hurt on you.
Yes, she can put a lot of mental hurt. Okay, she's still heavy, but like it's more mentally frustrating because my body cannot move how I want it to move. All right, and sometimes
Okay.
that's the worst thing that you can ever do to somebody, even if they are experienced, is get them to a position to where they cannot move their body how they want to move their body and how they need to move their body, and they have to settle for making mistakes, fully aware that they are making those mistakes, but they can't do anything about it. Okay?
Okay.
Now, from her point of view, she's just gonna have to like, get into those positions, wear me down a little bit, and she can attack and can go back to those positions at any given moment. So that's the great thing, is because she's not just like held on to me. Okay? And so then that becomes more dangerous from her point of view towards me, because now her movement is live. Her control is live. Her control is constantly readjusting to my movement and is always putting me in this weird position to be attacked to where my defense is very low.
It's that extra little bit of spice too.
Yeah.
It's not just you're holding someone down, it's you're punishing them.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's
that little things that just are like, oh my God, like I'm never gonna get out of this.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Now again, if the person is bigger than you and they do this to you, you will be absorbing all of their weight. Okay, like even right now, like how much do you weigh?
Right now I weigh probably 122.
Okay, so let's say 120. Okay, she weighs 120. It feels like she weighs about 150 on top of me, and it's 150 pounds of dead weight that consistently moves with me. So I'm always carrying it in these weird positions that I cannot use my big muscle groups on. So I'm getting fatigued physically, but like I said earlier, I'm getting fatigued mentally the most, because I know what I need to do, but I can't do it. I have to make a gross mistake in order to try to move in any way, shape, or form, and that runs the risk of me being attacked. And that's just a big, just a big mental, no, but I have to do it in order to try to escape. So you're playing like Russian roulette from this point. Okay, so back in here. So the second position, right? The knee on the hip and the knee on the armpit, with the control of the head and the elbow. Okay, you want to just kind of and you go ahead. There we go. And you want to do this, the control of the head. You just want to do it just a little bit. You're like, no, just elbow, bring it up. You want to just do it just a little bit. It's like very subtle. If you do it too often, if you do it too obvious, I'll go back to the beginning. If you like stuck your arm in there as far as you can and lift your elbow, it's way too obvious. And sometimes that person can use that to like push back, and they're forcing you to not do it even harder. And they move their head, and I was like, now they're trying to struggle and move. Like they figured that out. So it has to be subtle. It's like a constant shift, like quicksand. It's a constant shift of weight and adjustments of the angles on the head, especially on the head. So that way it's like, I feel like I've got a good idea to move, and then see how I'm turning my head, and she just reaches her arm further, and then she lifts her elbow.
Yes.
Around, and that turns my head to the ceiling straight. Okay, it doesn't seem like much on the camera, but it's such a big difference on my end, because now my shoulders are square to the ceiling, but my hips are rotated over, and I can't move like that. My body should not move like that, and if I do, I run the risk of being injured. Like my hips and my head should always be moving in the same directions. Okay. Now at this point, I'm relying more on my strength, like my arm strength, to try to get out of this position. It may work, it may not work, depending on her. But, again, Russian roulette. So I'm trying to readjust. she readjusts her head control, by like reaching and just lifting the head just a little bit. It's like, oh my gosh. Ugh. And it's just so annoying, and I can't really get out. It's so hard to get out. Okay, so the third option inside control, okay, that means that you're going to have to replace the knee that's by the person's hip with an arm. And it's going to be the arm that's underneath the armpit of your opponent, okay? You're going to put the palm down next to their hip, and you're going to bring this hip over, okay? Oh, yeah, you're going to move the arm over to the other side, and you're going to move the arm. If they don't move their elbow, go ahead. If they don't move their elbow, their arm's going to get stuck like this, okay? Most of the time, as you're moving, people are going to try to get their hand inside to frame. Well, that's their own downfall, and you're going to have to readjust your feet as you drop your hip in, and that becomes a very controlled position, okay? Now, why do you want to control the hip with your arm? Feet that one, head this way. Please. Okay, why do we want to do this? Well, it's because we're trying to prevent the hips from following my hips. Okay, if I leave my arm here, you see how much space she has?
Yes.
She can literally just just turn her hip over, and she can start, trying to catch my legs, and she's going to give me some sort of guard. Okay, or she's going to be able to create momentum one way and the other, and be able to create all these pushing and pulling opportunities for her to escape. Okay, so I want to control those hips from following me. So if she's trying to get into some sort of guard by turning into me, that's as far as she goes. You see that?
Yes.
All that movement. Okay? Well, and as far as positional attacks, you can use that to your advantage. She's turning into you, you block it. Well, if she keeps going, if she keeps hip escaping further away, that's even better for you. There's no real threat for you. You're going to go into north-south position. If she starts to chase your legs, and she feels the arm right there, she's going to try to probably go harder. And that happens, you let her come, and you start going for your mount positions, right? That's a positional attack. Okay? So let's go switch positions here. Okay, so the arm's going to be on the hip. Okay, she's going to be turning her hip down on top of my shoulder, kind of like toes positions. Sometimes you have this here. Okay, this can be tricky if you're going against an experienced person and they have one arm in front, one arm back, and you're pushing into them, but you have no control of your base. They can really just kind of bump and turn you over. They can roll you over. Okay, I'm not going to do that with her, but that's a possibility there. Okay, especially if you're small, you're going against someone bigger, and you kind of lost control. Maybe you're sitting too comfortably on the hip and not really feeling the control of the person. That's the danger for you. Okay, so let's fix the position a little bit. Okay, so the arm. So let's talk about the other arm real quick. Okay, so when she's switching her arms around, it's gonna go 1 and 2. This is 3 options here that you have. You can go elbow to the top of the shoulder. You can go elbow underneath the armpit, or you can go elbow over the armpit, depending on the size that you're going against and how comfortable you are at distributing your weight properly. All right. I will say this: if you're long, you are probably better off with the elbow over by the neck right now. Okay. If you're short, probably the elbow by the armpit, underneath the armpit, would be your best option. Okay. And as far as you going over the elbow, it's just personal preference. At that point, it's more like it's an experienced position from the shorter or the longer person. Okay. So
Okay.
she has her hand, checking. Is like she doesn't want to put her hand right next to my hip, but it's like she wants to put her hand behind my butt. Not this one. It's the other one. Okay, the other arm.
That is.
Okay, and she needs to walk and then extend her elbow just a little bit, and that will give her that control. That will give her that feel of that hip movement. If the arm is just right, or the hand is just right next to her to the hip, there's a lot of movement in here. Okay, but if she kind of hugs around the butt cheek with the arm, and she kind of opens up her elbow just like we've been doing, that tends to turn the hip away from her. That's good. Makes it very hard for the person to follow. Okay. All right. So now her hips. Okay. So as she's turning, she's gonna be turning the hip. Okay. She's gonna be over here. Yeah, like that. Okay. You want to be live toes, as we talked about. Okay. And you want to be kind of over the person, over the shoulder. You don't want to be right next to the shoulder. Even though right now she's got my arm pinned, okay? She doesn't have control of my upper body. She needs to have her hip over my shoulder. It has to be directly over my deltoid, okay? Like the front of the shoulder, all right? So you have to be very good at feeling that part of the body, okay? Sometimes people mistaken the bicep. If my arm gets stuck here, they will mistaken the bicep as the shoulder, and they will put weight on the bicep, and my shoulder is free. You see that? See how I can move my shoulder up and down? My shoulder is free.
Yes.
It means I can start to move, and I can frame, and I can mess her position up. Okay? So you have to be very good at going up and over and sitting on the front of the shoulder. Okay, and it's not hard to feel that position, because as soon as the person tries to use their arm, you can feel where the shoulder is. And if you feel like the person's slipping out, just readjust on top of the shoulder again. Use your toes and get on top of the shoulder. Okay, that's how you would keep the person in check, just from that position. So now let's talk about the arm being stuck. If it's stuck, you want to kind of tripod up on your toes and then walk a little bit over, and you want to get your hip, it's almost as close as you can to the person's face, and then you turn it down just like that. This will still give you that control of the hip being directly in front of the person's shoulder. Okay, she's live toe, so she's kind of be holding herself up while pushing into my body. That makes it so much harder on my arm to try to push her away. And even right now, when I will use both arms to frame against her, she doesn't have to really push back down. She just has to relax her hip and turn it in. It makes it so much harder. Okay? Now with the use of her arm on my other hip, she can use the palm to kind of push into me a little bit to put a little bit more weight. Same thing with her toes. She's got live toes. She kind of pushes into me a little bit. It actually makes my elbow feel like it's going to explode from the pressure. Okay? That's what she wants. If I'm moving around, she's going to have to readjust, to that position. Just right in there. Okay? And if she feels like my hips are turning too much, she's going to put her palm down and extend her elbow just a little bit to keep my knees straight up to the ceiling, or turn to the side, depending on how big the person is she's going with. Okay, does that make sense there?
It does.
Okay, so it's very awkward for me in this position. And like she can feel a lot of weight. She can feel a lot of control. Okay. Do you feel that control?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it doesn't take a lot. Like she can be here forever. Okay. It puts a lot of stress on the body, especially on the upper body. Okay. It tends to make your spine straighten out. And as you move, it just creates more stress on the lower back and on the shoulder because it's like cramped or controlled on top. Okay. So it's a good position to wear somebody down if you're smaller going against someone bigger. It's a good position to wear them down. Okay.
Just then you can go to north south, or you can kind of jump to the other side, right?
Yeah, you can go to north south or just go to the other side. No big deal. Okay. So that's the great thing about that position there. Okay. I use it a lot against stronger people.
I use it all the time.
Okay. If they are physically stronger than I am and I get to side control, I will bet you $100 that that's the position I go to every single time. I will wear them down first from that position, and then I will shift to the other, different variations of the side control that we've been working on so that I can attack them in a specific manner. Okay. This position here is really good for like the north-south choke, as some people would call it. Okay. Because a person is like, they're trying to struggle, and you can feel their head come up. Okay. And it's really good if your arm is on the outside or on top of the elbow, because if you can sense the head coming up, you can just slide that grip back down and get into that north-south position. Okay. If your arm is in front of the or underneath the armpit here, you can't choke the person, obviously, but you can definitely move them to the other side. Like you can move yourself to the other side and start getting more transitions from there. Make sense?
It does.
All right. The fourth one is the same one. It's the same variation as the second position, but you're gonna be completely attacking like right here, the shoulders and the neck. Okay. So she's in position 3, like this. Okay. So that means she's gonna bring one knee underneath my armpit, which is usually in this scenario, it's gonna be her right knee. Okay, there. And then the other leg is gonna be right here. You see that? See how close it is to my ear?
Yes.
My arm is still stuck underneath her. Like I can still try to push, but it's no good. So then now what she has to do is she has to readjust the arms. Once again, this arm has to go behind the head. Like that. And if she can do the same control that we worked on before, where she controls her elbow, that really puts a lot of weird tension on my head, and it turns my body in a weird, awkward angle, as you can see. Okay? See, if I try to push into her, see how my head is that way? Can you see where my toes are pointing? That's where
Yes.
I can't do that. So that means I have to turn this way. Oh, that's so awkward. Okay? So let's turn it. Okay. So this arm here, you can leave it here, how she has it, because she's kind of she's monitoring this side of the body. Okay, no big deal. It's still live because she can, any single time this hand goes like this, she can trap the wrist, like she can go like a really good just C-grip position. C-grip. Okay, and she can just bring her arm up and over for the Kimura position right there, and she steps over the head. Oh, and she can already finish. Okay. If she goes for the wrist and my arm gets straightened out and it comes over here, it's no big deal. She just goes for the underhook, kind of like in that position right in there, and this arm attacks the wrist, and it goes into the Americana. Okay? this arm can also be on the other side of the hip, just like that. Okay? And so, too high in the head. Okay, now go ahead, push it in. Yeah, right there. Okay? So then now that arm's on the other side of the hip, I'm stuck. She has pinned me. Okay? I use this variation to frustrate a lot of people. Okay? Because they're trying to move, trying to escape, and I'm just controlling their body. That's all I'm doing. Okay? If they manage to get their arm out, so if I go this way, a lot of people are going to try to go that way.
Great control for that.
Yes, very good control for that.
Awesome.
Okay? If they turn into you,
Control too.
excellent control. If their arm comes out the other way, so let's say the arm comes out over here, let's turn around. Right here. Okay, this is a very typical, side control escape. Okay, where the person's gonna go like, usually they'll do this and spin around or spin underneath you. Can't do it. Same thing. If I try to go here, can't do it. Can't do it. It's not gonna happen. So she's got very excellent control, but a lot of it is because of the neck. Okay, if she were to stop controlling my neck, how I'm asking her to control it right now, see how easy it is for me to move.
Yes.
Okay, even if my arm is here and she stops controlling my neck, how I'm asking her to do it, like right there, I can still trap and I can turn her over. Okay, no matter how she's struggling, because I'm bigger and stronger, I can use my size and my strength against her now and just push her over. Okay, so that head control is going to be the key to her being successful in just stopping everything, not allowing me any options except to suffer, really. Okay, so back to the head control. That's it. I can't do it. Okay, is that head controls everything. Okay, so
It's awesome control.
yeah, it's very awesome control. It's
Okay.
something that anybody can do. The only difference is that whether you have that that patience to do it. Okay, are you going to fight yourself? Let's say you manage to get to side control. I hit that way, please. Okay, let's say you find yourself in the side control. Are you gonna resist the urge of going like, right, squeezing them with as hard as you can, because either A, you got excited that you actually got a side control and you just want to like squeeze them because you want to show them your strength, right? Like you want them to feel how strong you are, which that happens very, very often. Or you actually become disciplined and you're like, oh, and you get to those positions and you're like, oh, okay. And she tries to move and you're like, oh, okay, I see. I'm adjusting. I can do this. Okay? Like you have to make that decision. Understand?
Yes.
It's going to be night and day. I guarantee you that. It's going to be night and day.
And it doesn't feel like you have anything really, but
Yes.
you do.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Like, you don't feel that control. I mean, like, you feel it, but you don't feel like you're doing enough of it. Okay? You have to be confident in yourself that you are doing it. All right? So, questions that I get asked a lot of the times is, how do I know if, sorry, the thing's not focused. Is it? There we go. Okay. A common question I get asked is, how do I know if I lost the control of the position or of just the control? Okay. Simple. You will feel the person actually improve on their position. Okay, like you will feel them hip escape out, hip escape back in, try to bridge out, bridge into you, push you away, pull you again with more purpose or more determination, right? If you still have the control, the person will forever be helpless. And you can sense that. You can sense the person underneath you being helpless. Okay? It's just you have to be calm yourself in order to feel that. If you start to get all, wiry about it and kind of weird that you're like, I'm winning, you will lose that control. You will lose that reality or that control of that reality. So it's just not
Okay.
thing, like it's really more mental. Just like I said earlier, it's probably like 60% mental anguish versus the 40% physical anguish that I've experienced from her doing this to me, controlling me in the bottom, how we've been showing. It's the same thing to her. She's controlling me. It's 60% mental and the other is 40% physical. Like you have to be in tune with your body. You have to be in tune with your opponent's body, and you have to be in tune with like just the situation in itself.
Okay.
All right? Which is a concept that is very hard for a lot of people to understand or be successful with. Okay? One way that will help you understand that is for you to remain as calm as possible by breathing properly. You will have to regulate your exhale properly so that you can feel the tense moments of the opponent's body. Okay? And then you will readjust according to them. And as you do it more and more and more, you will also start to discover that sometimes the little tense positions that you feel coming from your opponent doesn't mean anything. It just means that they're tense. It just means that they're kind of freaking out a little bit. They're not getting ready to escape. They're not getting ready to regain a control. They're just freaking out. They're just tense. They don't know what to do. Okay? So when you're comfortable with that, you can experience feeling that and controlling that way. Like you will take your control to a whole new level.
Okay.
Any questions? Do you have any questions? Any other questions?
It's just
None. It looks like a dominant position.
It's just remembering to do it when you're in the moment, like
Yes.
remembering to move your hand, move your elbow just that little bit. And
Yes. Okay. So that reminds me of the tense, right? Like your opponent's being tense. Sometimes you can be too tense yourself with like the head control. You can try to go too deep with your arm. You can try to elevate your elbow too high. You can flex your arm too much with the head control. On your side, it may feel like you're doing way better, but you can see them actually move much better underneath you. And that's usually because the head control is not there, or it's partially there. Okay, so you're gonna have to like readjust again, release the tense movement of your arm, and readjust it again, and like reinflate it just enough.
I have my arms on my knees.
Arms on your knees.
Like that. Like this, like my elbow's kind of resting on my knee, and so that elevates my arm.
Oh yes, yeah. When she's into the second, I'm sorry, the fourth.
The last one.
The fourth position, where her knee is right next to my ear. Yeah, that helps a lot. Like you resting, this angle right here of your thigh will actually guide you and be easier for you to control the person's head.
And it elevates your
It already elevates, yeah, because see how my fat thigh is in the way? That's already,
Yeah.
If I remove the thigh, that's how much the head is already elevated and controlled.
Okay.
All right. Now, I will say one more thing. When you have your hand around the person's hip or their butt, head that way. Okay. That's it. We're here in this position. Okay. And you have your hand here. It is very easy for you to turn your hand over and get a piece of the cloth. Okay. Resist that. Don't do that. Because now you're going to give them a lot of mobility. She doesn't feel her hip being controlled. All she feels is her pant leg being pulled. Okay? So she can move her hip now. No problem. She can bring her knee in front of my armpit and wedge it inside. No problem. But if I put my hand here and I collapse my elbow, and if she tries to bring her knee in front of my underneath my armpit and whatnot, there is no room. See how my arm just consistently moved?
Yes.
That's what you're looking for. This is shallow.
Do you actually cup the butt with your hand?
No, I don't cup the butt with my hand. It's with my thumb. Like my thumb goes around.
Oh.
I don't cup with my palm. I go with my thumb because I want my
Okay.
to be face down the whole time.
Okay.
Okay? Any single time I turn my palm off the ground, you see how my elbow kind of moves?
Yes.
Okay? That rotation of the elbow completely nullifies that control. So I want that control here. It's just the same control as the neck. Okay? If she had the control of the neck and then if she were to turn her palm off the ground, my elbow will tend to bend just a little bit and that control completely changes.
Okay.
Okay? Now, again, as earlier I said, you can use your shoulder to put some pressure on there and whatnot. You can do that whenever you're trying to hold onto your hands. But whenever you start to do this, you can't really put weight on the shoulder and this at the same time. It doesn't work. Okay? You got to choose one. If you're going to rely on that shoulder pressure, then you're going to have to get your hand on there and really like squeeze their head between your shoulder and your forearm. Yeah, you got to drive.
Okay.
Okay? But if you're not going to do that, don't put your arm and elevate your elbow and then try to drive your shoulder in. It's going to kill the control. Okay? Or you will be working too much with your arm and your arm's going to get tired because it's doing two different things at once.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So if you don't have any questions, we will call it a night and we'll see you on the next one.
Okay. Take care, everyone.